Before we get started, I also wanted to thank the PMI team for the invite to be here, and more broadly for the great couple of days that they put together. It's a fascinating program, and I'm thrilled to be part of it. So as I said, we'll dedicate this session to talk about the interplay between domestic crediting mechanisms and international carbon markets, looking at different approaches, different strategies for how to go about doing that, and also reflecting on the opportunities and challenges that this interplay present to countries. As a quick note of scene setting, and as you probably know, there is an increasing attention to domestic crediting mechanisms and frameworks as more and more countries develop and implement their climate policy framework, and also as they evaluate the use of different carbon pricing mechanisms in the policy mix needed to achieve the NDC. We heard a bit of that already in the previous panel, and especially Sebastian, Beatrice, and Can already touched on the respective role and responsibilities to some extent of different forms of carbon pricing. And while it is true that many countries are implementing or already operating compliance carbon pricing frameworks, we also are seeing an increasing amount of attention to the use of domestic crediting mechanisms as part and as a key component of a carbon pricing mix, and as a key component of, more broadly, a climate change strategy. Having domestic carbon pricing in place can serve different purposes depending on how countries configure it. I mean, it can really complement and provide flexibility to... Still nothing. It can really complement and provide flexibility to compliance carbon pricing when it is connected to compliance carbon pricing frameworks. It can also extend the carbon price signal to sectors and activities that are not covered by compliance carbon pricing at a specific point in time. It can also pave the way to the development of compliance carbon pricing as well, and we have seen examples of that in different countries. Most crucially, it can be a means to attract international finance to mitigation projects, especially when credits are sold internationally, and this is something that we will explore in this panel. Obviously, if you have domestic policy frameworks in place, you can then sell those credits either to the voluntary market or to compliance markets under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. And for some countries, having domestic carbon pricing frameworks in place might be the only carbon pricing option at a specific point in time. This is the case, for example, for countries that lack the capacity to develop compliance carbon pricing, for example, or that do not have the right conditions and circumstances for the implementation of compliance carbon pricing at a given point in time. Also, it's also worth keeping in mind that as with any other aspect related to carbon pricing, there's no single recipe for how to go about designing and implementing domestic crediting frameworks. We're seeing countries that are using different strategies and following different approaches as to how they develop domestic policy, domestic carbon pricing frameworks. And beyond that, and to add another layer of complexity, both domestic crediting and also international markets are a fast evolving space. Again, if you read the World Bank State and Trends of Carbon Pricing report, you will get a better sense of this, but all of this is a fast evolving space, and it can be challenging for countries to navigate it and to understand how to approach it effectively. So we'll spend the next 60 minutes or so talking about this and dissecting some of the most recent developments. In terms of how we're doing this, you should still have a piece of paper in front of you, and I will ask each one of you to draw what domestic crediting mechanisms means to you. That's a joke. We do have You can relax. We actually do have a great panel here, and you can sit back and they will do most of the work for you. You have one main role in the next 60 minutes, which will be think about the questions that you might have, write that down, and we'll get to Q&A after the first round of panel discussion. Also, a note for my panelists. As you saw just now in the previous session, this is not a shy bunch of people. They do have a lot of questions. So I will invite you to keep your initial remarks quite brief, and we'll try to give as much time as possible to interaction and Q&A with the audience. With that, I would like to quickly introduce my panel, and then I'll give them the floor. So to my left, we have Jorge Gomez Lechaptois from Chile, Chunling Feng from the Ministry of Ecology and Environment of China, and then Ana Moreno from the Climate Change Unit at the Ministry of Environment in Panama. Each one of the panelists are responsible for developing domestic carbon pricing and crediting frameworks, and to understand how that fits into their broader carbon pricing and climate policy strategy. So we'll ask each one of them to briefly elaborate on that as a way to start the discussion. And again, after we hear from them, we'll come to you for Q&A and discussion with the audience. So starting with Jorge, Chile is quite an interesting example because Chile has a carbon tax in place. You are also now effectively operating an offsetting mechanism that is attached to that carbon tax, and the system is up and running, is in place, and the first credits are being used against the carbon tax obligation. So again, looking at your experience, I wanted to briefly ask you if you could, introduce the rationale behind this policy design, and especially when it comes to, choosing to rely on existing international carbon standards as opposed to. We'll do it. As long as the screen works. So again, I think it would be interesting to hear on the rationale for relying on international carbon standards as opposed to setting up your own ones, and I would also like to ask you the challenges and lessons learned that you encountered in the process. I'm actually not sure anymore which mic works best, so I think also, oh, is it working? Yeah, we're back online. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, great. I have some slides I prepared. I don't know if they can be shown. No. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks very much. So should I pass it with them? Yeah. So I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very thankful for the organization and for the invitation. So to show how the Chilean offset mechanism actually works and all the doubts and challenges we have. As it was introduced, this offset mechanism is in the context of a green tax that covers almost 1/3 of all the emissions of the country. Actually, today the price is $5 per ton, and it covers global and local pollutants, particulate matter, SO2, etc. So there is a challenge into thinking how these two markets will interact. Okay. Also, we have emission thresholds, 25,000 tons of CO2 per year. And from this year, actually, the companies that pay taxes, they can deduct the amount they pay by presenting these certificates of emission reduction. So what we just put in place is an offset system. On the one hand, we have the demand from the green tax, and on the other hand, our legislation and regulation put in place two different options. On the one hand, would be external crediting mechanisms such as CDM, VERA, etc. But also it allows the country to build a domestic crediting mechanism. So we had to put or think in this deployment in two phases. The first was the, as we call, the homologation, or the use of external crediting mechanism. So we had to recognize external crediting mechanism, and in the second phase we will put in place a national domestic mechanism, and we have a lot of challenges, and I will show them after. So how to actually implement that. Why did we start with the recognition of external mechanism? So to generate initial momentum. So our country already had millions of credits available for our mechanism. So we wanted to benefit from the national and international experience, so we can buy some time, so to generate some local or national capacity. And also we wanted to be aligned with the international efforts regarding carbon markets. So what we did actually was implement a process of homologation, and we actually put some stamp, on the credit. So we said, okay, this credit, after some very agile process, we deploy a platform for that. We could say, okay, this credit can be used for the green tax. So which were the results of 2024? This year, we actually offset 2,600 CO2 tons of CO2 equivalent, that account more or less of 1% of all the demand, that is 30 millions of CO2 tons of CO2 emissions. That came from 8 projects. All of them came from renewable energy, electricity generation. So now we're designing this phase 2 of implementing a domestic crediting mechanism. Of course, we see as some benefits the potential alignment with internal priorities like biodiversity conservation, air quality, etc., that we call them ancillary benefits. We see an option of complementing external programs, for example, to catalyze small projects, so we can group small projects, cost containment as well, and also strengthening internal capacity, MRV, etc. But we have some challenges. Of course, technical and institutional capacity. For example, auditors. Today, to have auditors in our national borders, we have 0 today. So we need to start building that, and that can take years. The available financial resources, today we could implement or deploy this thanks to this kind of projects. Also, we need to harness the private sector movement or momentum. There are a lot of challenges between interactions, not only within the ministry, but also with other ministries. And finally, how do we articulate with other instruments? And this is actually my final slide. On the one hand, we already put in place a demand, that is the green tax, that can be fulfilled with the supply of credits that come from external crediting mechanism. We have that, but we want to go a step further. On the right, we need to implement a domestic crediting mechanism that can complement the external crediting mechanism. But on the left, we want to build or articulate with other instruments that are in our country. For example, we have now in our climate change law the possibility of implementing greenhouse gas standards. And in order to comply with those standards, they can comply with buying credit mechanisms. So it makes sense that we can build just one supply for several instruments of demand. For example, Article 6 of Paris Agreement, voluntary market as well, but also environmental impact assessment system, and also superintendency of the environment, that sometimes when they find some uncompliance of the law or the regulations, they can ask them to come back to the compliance by buying, for example, some credits from this supply or this emission offset mechanism. So, in brief, we have a lot of challenge regarding institutional capacity and also with the articulation of the different instruments that are now in place in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. And it was quite interesting that you mentioned, the interest in developing your own domestic crediting mechanisms. As we'll go now to the next speaker, so Chunling Feng from China. And as we all know, China does have already quite a lot of experience with developing and operating their own domestic crediting mechanisms. And there are always a lot of interesting news out of China, but one notable one that happened last year is that China, after a few years of effectively a stop to the domestic credit mechanisms, did relaunch the national carbon credit market. It's called the China Certified Emission Reduction Program, the CCR program, and at the same time is also taking steps to expand the national ETS, so the national compliance carbon pricing framework, to additional sectors. So I would like to ask Chunling if she can discuss both the overall rationale for the CCR relaunch, and especially touching on the pros and cons of having your own domestic crediting framework. But as you do that, I would also like to ask you to elaborate on where things are going with the emission trading system in China and what the next steps might be. With that, Chunling, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, for moderator, Mr. Stefano. I'm Feng Chunling from Department of Climate Change MEE. Now I would like to introduce China's national carbon market construction situation from following three parts: overall consideration, progress, achievement, and the next step. Thank you. This one. Yeah. From 2011, China has launched the pilot carbon emission trading programs in 7 provinces and municipalities and launched national carbon emissions trading in 2021. China has actively developing the national carbon market, which comprises a national compulsory carbon emission trading market and a national voluntary GHG emission trading market. The ultimate goal is to build a uniform national carbon market system in line with Chinese actual situation, characteristic, and international standards. I will introduce progress and achievement from following 6 steps. First one, established and perfected a multi-level institutional framework. On May 1st this year, we officially implemented the interim regulations on administrative of carbon emission trading, providing a clean legal basis for operation and management of the national carbon emission trading market, forming an effective legal deterrent and providing a strong legal support. In recent years, we have issued ministerial measures for carbon emission trading and regulatory document on registration, trading, and settlement of carbon emission rights, the quota allocation program, and the technical specifications for accounting, reporting, and the verification of carbon emission in the Power Generation Sector Act. A legal system and working mechanism for the national carbon emission trading market, comprising administrative regulations, departmental rules, standards, as well as relevant technical specifications, has been initially formed. Additionally, the relevant department has issued the interpretation of several issues concerning the application of law in handling criminal cases of environmental pollution, which has brought carbon emission fraud into the scope of criminal sections. Second, developed an infrastructure support system featuring one network, two organizations, and 3 platforms. The National Carbon Market Management Platform has been established for the centralized release of authoritative information on the national carbon market, national carbon emission right registration, trading systems has been set up for the fine management of quota registration, insurance, trading, and cleaning related activities. 3 major infrastructures, namely the National Carbon Emission Rights Registration System, the Trade System, and the National Carbon Market Management Platform, have been built and stably operated, and the key process links have been connected, releasing online whole business management, centralization of whole process data, and sign-basis comprehensive decision-making. The infrastructure support system for national carbon emission trading market have been basically formed. Third, sustain strengthening data quality management, establish the national, province, municipal emission data supervision mechanism based on annual report and verification. Monthly data and information storage was added to enhance data management. Big data and blockchain technology were used to enhance supervision efficiency. Fourth, the market has been operating steadily and well. In July 2021, the launch of the national ETS, the market operation has been generally smooth and orderly. China's carbon emission star trading online and 2 performance cycle have been successfully completed. The first from 2019 to 2020, and the second from 2021 and 2022. There was a significant increase in market activity in the second compliance cycle compared to the first one. By the end of 2023, the cumulative volume had reached 440 million tons with a turnover of about 24.9 billion yuan RMB. The trading price has raised steadily, with the price remaining about 50 to 80 yuan RMB per ton. In April 2024, the price has exceeded 19 yuan RMB per ton. Fifth, the 2 compliance cycles have been completed smoothly. So far, the second compliance cycle of the national carbon emission trading market involves enterprise about 2,257, accounting for 82% of the total, up near 50% compared with the first compliance cycle. The enthusiasm of the enterprise to participate in the transaction has significantly increased. The compliance rate for the first cycle, 2019 to 2020, is 99.5%. The compliance rate for the second cycle, 2021 and 2022, was the 99.61% and 99.88%. Sixth, ongoing capacity building. We have carried out various forms of training for local ecology and environmental authorities, enterprises, third-party institutions. Currently, enterprise management capability has been significantly improved. The capacity of technical service institutions have become more standardized, and the technical evolution scale has become more uniform. Government regulatory capacity have more specialized. About CCER, on January 22 this year, the National Voluntary Greenhouse Gas Emission Reduction Trading Market was officially launched. This market, the complete of the construction of China's national carbon market system, which is driven by both mandatory and voluntary markets. This is the following national carbon emission trading market. China launched another important policy tool to help achieve the carbon peak and carbon neutrality. MEE has published 4 CCER projects, methodologies, including grid-connected electricity generation from offshore windy power, grid-connected electricity generation from solar thermal power, forestation, and mangrove vegetation creation. It should be pointed out that the construction of China's national carbon market is still in infancy. Compared with the mature carbon market in developed countries, it still needs to be further improved. The larger scale of China's national carbon market and the larger differences between different industrial and enterprises has placed high demands on our regulatory capacity and also broad challenges. As a next step, we will take action in the following 4 areas. First, further improve institution and administrative system, revise related policies, documents, and technical guidelines. Second, gradually expand the scope of national ETS to more industries. Prioritize the increase of key industries with the larger carbon emission. Zeros overcapacity, good, synergistic, effective of pollution reduction, and carbon reduction, and a good data quality basis. Gradually incorporate more industrial and expand the scale of emission covered by the market based on the principle of one mature, one covered. Strive to implement the first implementation of national ETS as soon as possible. Third, enhancing market functions and stimulating market volatility. Improving location method, gradually add pay allocation, gradually add trading entities, trading products, and trading method. Strengthen the supervision of a market transaction, improve rules, and enhance the activity of transactions. Fourth, promoting construction of national voluntary GHG emission reduction trading market. Efforts will be made to establish a standardized, effective, fair, and transparent voluntary emission reduction trading market, and motivate a wide ranging of industrials and enterprises to participate in GHG emission reduction. Launched online trading of emission reduction from new projects, improving institutional, releasing new methodologies, establishing a machine for supervising the data, and promoting convergence with the international rules. Okay, this is my introduction. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you for the very interesting overview, and I think it was quite fascinating to see how different, bits and pieces of the carbon policy framework are interplaying with each other, and they all contribute to the overall objectives that China that China has. We'll move to Ana Moreno from Panama now, and we'll get yet another take on how this interplay can play out, and we'll get to hear from a different approach and a different kind of situation in which domestic policy frameworks are implemented. So the Ministry of Environment of Panama has been quite active lately, and has been signing MOUs with some of the main independent crediting standards, including Vera, Gold Standard, Plan Vivo, and CAR, the Climate Action Reserve, to try and improve Panama's domestic voluntary market. And so I would like to ask you to elaborate a bit, behind the rationale for these MOUs, and also if you can share with us what you think is needed to strengthen Panama's approach to domestic crediting, and also what it takes to effectively leverage on access to international markets. With that, Ana, the floor is yours.
Hello? Yeah, it's working. Thank you so much, Stefano, and also to the colleagues in this panel. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and thank you also for everyone participating this afternoon. I didn't bring my presentation, so sorry, oops. But I do have some notes, so just in case I forget anything. First of all, I would like to start by the question about methodologies. Panama is developing a national carbon market, and we are going to have a supply side of this market that is going to be composed of national carbon projects. The idea for the government is not to develop our own methodologies, but to rely on these accreditation mechanisms that are already working in the voluntary carbon market and has some experience already developing different type of methodologies. So we are going to adopt or adapt these methodologies to the national circumstances. Our idea is to sign memorandums of understanding. We already have 4 signed with Plan Vivo, Climate Action Reserve, Vera, and also Gold Standard. And those memorandums has allow us to exchange some knowledge with these registries and learn about their methodologies, review the methodologies, and eventually find the ones that are more suitable for our own national context. So the idea is that anybody that is interested in developing a project to get some credits and sell them in the national market, they will have to select one of these registries and work with one of those methodologies that the government has reviewed and prioritized. It's also important to mention that we are also working with American Carbon Registry, but we do not have a memorandum with them, but we are reviewing their methodologies also. In terms of activities and sectors, we are prioritizing some methodologies like microscale energization and electrification, also livestock activities, cookstuff, efficient cookstuffs, refrigerant use, waste sector, and of course the forestry sector, especially agroforestry and silvopastoral systems, and also mangroves. And also it's worth noting that last year, Panama worked with Climate Action Reserve in the adaptation of the Mexico Forestry Protocol to Panama. So we now have our first adapted methodology for the forestry sector. It includes activities in the agroforestry sector, silvipastoral systems, urban forest, and also reforestation, and and mangroves also. So the methodology is already out there in the CAR website, so it's ready to use for anybody who would like to try and develop a forestry project in Panama. And also I would like to mention that for this system to work, of course, we need a demand side. So by the moment, we are working with a national governmental program known as Reduce Your Corporate Footprint, RTH Corporativo in Spanish. This is the first governmental program to the management of GHG emissions at corporate level. For now, we are in the third year of the program, and we have had a great response, especially by the private sector. We have 92% of the participants come from the private sector. We have 224 companies registered, and we also have 27 of those companies who also committed to carbon neutrality by 2050. They are very willing to learn. They are installing their own capacity so they can measure their own footprint, and eventually we hopefully get them to compensate their footprint and achieve that carbon neutrality. There is no incentives for now for the companies. It's all voluntary, so that makes a great success for the program, because there's no incentives, and anyway, every year we have more and more companies joining the initiative. Eventually, we hope that we can get to define a cap for those companies and define which companies will have, in a mandatory manner, to compensate their footprint. And finally, talking a little bit more about how are we trying to create a market with high integrity. This subject is very important for Panama, the transparency and high integrity. Since the beginning, we are trying to get to know how are we going to do that. That's the main reason why we prioritize some accreditation mechanisms from the voluntary carbon market, because we didn't want to invent the wheel. We want to learn from others' experiences that has worked before in other markets. We have been working also with California. I think I heard Brazil also work with California, and they have been a great guidance for us because they have a lot of expertise in their own cap and trade system. And also we are working with the Regional Collaboration Center of UNFCCC, learning a lot about Article 6 mechanisms and how can we align what we are creating in the national context to those mechanisms. And we are fans of international cooperation. We also, of course, are working with the World Bank, and we are part of PMI, but also we are working in the CPA, the Carbon Pricing in the Americas. That is an initiative of countries in the Americas that we exchange some knowledge about carbon pricing instruments. Also, we have been following these new initiatives for integrity in the voluntary carbon market. And in the construction of our market, we are prioritizing the development of a national registry. So the idea of this national registry for projects is that we can receive the information of everything that is happening at mitigation level in the country. And in that registry, we are hoping to receive information for all kinds of projects. The projects that are willing to participate in the voluntary carbon market, in the national market, or in other regulated markets, such as the Article 6 mechanisms or CORSIA. So with that registry, also, the country will have to make some accounting rules so everybody is clear on where they can participate or not. So we're hoping that those measures can create a market with high value for the international connections. Thank you.
Many thanks. Thank you, Anna, and also thank you, Jorge, Chunling, and Anna, for the great food for thought that we heard so far. I would like to open the floor now for Q&A with the audience, and I see that there are some volunteers already. So we're not going back to drawing, thanks to your questions. We'll start with Alexi, Philippe, and then Camilo in the back.
Thank you, Stefano. Great to see you. So I have a question for, and thank you for the panel, the three of you. That was very interesting. But I have a question specific for Jorge. While I think it's healthy that countries have their own registry, whether they develop it or they subcontract it, I don't think we have time to reinvent the wheel, but I mean, that's another conversation. I'm really curious about the willingness of Chile to become a new standard. Do you plan to do new methodologies? Do you plan to take from existing? And you know, it's an industry that has been evolving painfully but soundly. You know, we have 20 years of methodologies and reframing, and we saw on the voluntary market ultimately that even, you know, some painful questions were put, and we had to revisit the methodology. If you have 1% of your tax contributor that are participating in the scheme, how do you plan to increase that? And how much time do you give yourself to become an effective standard? And why not use what's the best of there is out there? And I don't mean necessarily one standard, but take the best methodology available. Is that something you would consider?
Thank you. In the interest of time, we'll take a couple of questions and then we'll come back to the panel. Philippe.
Thank you, Stefano. My question is also for Jorge. Quebec is working with the Ministry of Energy in Chile since a lot of years, and we know that there is an ambition for the carbon tax to go to transition to an cap and trade system, but there is some challenges with the climate change law, and I was wondering if it's possible to develop a bit on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Camilo?
Thank you very much, Stefano. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate all of you for the progress done, and also interesting reflections in the last panel about the EU position. So I just want to connect both sessions. EU countries and companies are recognized for being one of the main buyers of carbon credits in the market. Together with the USA could be around the 70–80% of the demand, which is one of the main sources of finance for ecosystem communities in the global south. So indeed, a statement led and supported by 69 community-based organizations will be released at LAX in the coming days. And I want to make the connection because also the EU is putting conditions on LAC countries asking to stop deforestation in trade deals with Mercosur, for example, which has obviously a positive environmental impacts. But at the same time, some doors are closing to channel finance to the global south countries. And we know LAC countries and other regions need access to international finance to succeed in mitigation. So basically, from your point of view, the countries that we have here in the panel, how could the European Union and other world regions support finance to ecosystems and communities in the global south? Well, what could be the way? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start from Jorge, and then we'll go to Chunling and Anna.
Question. Sorry. Thanks for your question. For this question, I'm sure my colleague, Mr. Lu Chenggang, he would be happy to answer this question. He has more experience in CCER or China's ETS. Please, Mr. Lu.
Thank you very much for the question. I would like to add a few more information concerning the China carbon pricing mechanism. In generally, we have a compliance market, which is ETS, and voluntarily market, which is CCER. And currently, we will consider we will consider to develop the carbon tax analysis in a PMI project. So hopefully we can have some result after the 3 years project implementation. So coming back to the ETS, China ETS, as you know, basically we have 7 provincial carbon market, 7 provinces and municipality, and from 2017, China launched a national ETS and started to construct the carbon market in the power sector. Currently, what has been introduced by my colleague, Madam Feng, and so we are considered to extend the ETS to other sector, like iron and steel, pulp and paper, and aluminum, and petroleum oil sector, so on and so forth. And the total idea is to use the ETS to cover approximately 70% of the total emission in China. But the key issue here, we are not ready to extend the market because we haven't settled down the quality issue even in the power sector, and seldomly we can find some data cheating and data frauding cases for a year. So currently we are constructed to enhance the national MI system to and also to enhance the punishment system, and also to promote the awareness raising of the sector. So this is China ETS. For CCR, China started to operate the CCR from 2012 and publish more than 20 methodology. But most of those methodology are adopted by the CDM methodology. So, but by 2017, the government says that your ministry has no. What's the rationale for your ministry to endorse those CCR projects? So the CCR has been cancelled. It's temporarily terminated for a few years. But after last year, and the government says that those kind of things, approval things, has been transferred from Environment Ministry to the Market Supervision Ministry. So that's can work. So we initiated the CCR this year and promulgated 4 methodology which cover offshore wind power and solar thermal and forestation and mangrove. So hopefully we can, under support by the World Bank PMI project, sign an agreement by end of this year. And thank the bank team, and we can achieve the objective to extend the ETS coverage and to promulgate more methodology and the CCR system. But another thing is that China, there's a linkage between the ETS and the CCR. As you know that for the transaction and within the ETS, 5% of the transaction can be offsetted by the CCER. So this is a linkage between the two systems. Another idea rationale is that China CCER is developed under the orientation for international trading, especially Article 6 and international cooperation approach and Article 6. So this is my more information to share with my colleague and audience. Thank you.
Many thanks for adding some additional color on the Chinese context. I'll go to Jorge now. There were quite a few questions addressed to you, so I would like to ask you to start addressing them. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for the questions, because it allows me to tackle a very important point. So within the deployment of this offset mechanism, we are working in two main areas. So on the one hand, the first is the recognition of international or external mechanism, BCS, CDM, and gold standard. We already recognize those external crediting mechanism, and we are planning to incorporate much more by application of these standards. Okay, so we don't have initially a limit recognition of standards. If we have some criterias, and if the standard meet those criterias, we will recognize them so they can be part of the mechanism. So, and we already validate all the methodologies. We are kind of agnostic in that sense. If one methodology is in the standard that has been recognized, we accept it. So that's our first tone. And the second one, the domestic mechanism, is already in the law, but we know it's a challenge. We know that the private sector has 4 times more resources than the public sector. We know that there has been much done, and we know that the private sector moves sometimes much faster than the state. So it's in place, but we will start with pilots. So we want to identify where's the specific niche that the state where the state can add some value. We won't, so we will find out that with the pilots, and we can see where the state have a role. If it doesn't have a role, you know. But we want to create the enabling condition for the private sector to move. But maybe there's a role, and that's, yeah.
So
you want to follow?
It's complementary.
Yeah, it's totally complementary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. So those are the 2 areas: the recognition of external mechanism and the domestic. We will start with pilots that can have important ancillary benefits, biodiversity, air quality, etc. But you asked me, what about enlarging the percentage? But the thing is that our tax doesn't have a goal. So do we need more offset or not? And the problem is that maybe we need to move from a tax, I mean, that's my personal opinion, so from a tax to a cap and trade. And I will link with the second question, because the cap and trade has a goal, you know, and you can think the offset in the terms of a goal, of a mitigation goal or a air quality goal. And we already have a climate change law that has 2 articles that tackles cap and trade. But the thing is that it wasn't a work or it wasn't done by a political or technical consensus. You know, it's not a top-down. It's a bottom-up approach, because it was within a greenhouse gas standard, emission standard. Okay, so now we're thinking in how to convert that in an ETS bottom-up without a technical or political consensus. So we're starting with that. Okay, how can we link with the Ministry of the Energy, you know, and start building an ETS from bottom, from 2 articles. It's not that easy, but I think the opportunity is to think the offset. I mean, to concept the offset within a mitigation goal of the country, or maybe by sectors.
Just the last reflection I want to share. I thought the idea was very interesting, because Chile is probably one of the few countries in America Latina that's going to need to import carbon credits to meet its NDC. And, you know, to have a system that incentivizes the private sector to invest into, you know, carbon credits, which are probably cheaper than, you know, what you will need, would allow you to also create an offering that can then be maybe converted to Article 6 to countries that needs, you know, to buy and finance the most expensive transition. Like hydrogen is one of the big things for Chile, it's going to cost a lot of money. And I thought that was where it was, you know, an interesting scheme, because it's true that Europe with the cap and trade has an incredible success, but you know, it's 32 countries with very high economical capacities, and it generates billions of euros every year to finance research and development. You don't have that scale in Chile, and this could be an idea to do. No, that's my approach.
Oh, thanks very much. We can talk later then. I'm very interested. I don't think I captured very well Camilo's question. It was regarding a specific of an ecosystem. Ecosystems, one biodiversity.
Yeah, basically I was saying that, of course, Latin America, Africa, Asia, we need funding to succeed with our mitigation targets. But at the same time, yeah, for example, the position of the European Union, you know, carbon credits from the global south is not that allowed. So what could be the best way that European Union and other wealth countries could help funding ecosystems and communities in the global south?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure I'm the person that can give you a full answer, but for sure we're working in the supply side. Okay, on the one hand, will be I'm thinking in goals, instruments, and tools. You know, as a public policy. From our country, we have to have clear goals for the ecosystem or biodiversity conservation. We don't have that much, I mean, in terms of locally, and we have a global goal. Then we have to put in place some instruments, offset schemes, etc. And third, we have to put in place some tools, and I'm thinking in MRV or methodologies. So to build, have a good building of the supply side, and maybe we can do some transactions with the credits, you know, so to foster the MRB or the supply side, and also linked with that will be the capacity building, etc. But I don't want to have like a straight answer for the question. Would be working in those three areas and to see which of those areas we can start building on.
Anna, would you like to elaborate on what Camilo was asking?
Yes, sure. I think that's the great part of this type of events, that we can get creative, thinking in new ways to achieve our commitments, our global commitments. I don't think there is an easy answer to Camilo's question, but maybe giving some support on capacity building. I know they already are, but capacity building is very important in LATAM countries. We need to learn how to do this the right way. And also technology. In the case of Panama, we need a lot of help with technology, data, that kind of stuff. And also creating some opportunities for demand, because we are seeing all these type of mechanisms being created in international markets, but who's going to buy? So creating that opportunity for demand, I think, is important. And also creating some opportunities to complex sectors, such as the forestry sector, because we need the forest, but how can we finance the forestry sectors? That's complex. Let's not go there right now, but you know, that's important. And the other thing, I think, not just for the European Union, but the other countries, Article 6, I think, provides a great opportunity, especially with 6.2, to exchange some results for us in developing countries. I think it's a win-win situation, because for us in the development countries, we can get some new flows, economic flows, to our projects, national projects, in the sectors that we have prioritized. And for the developed countries, they can achieve their own commitments. So I think there's some options there, but we need to learn how to do it well.
Jorge, did you want to come back to that?
Yeah, just to add one thing, Camilo, and I agree with Anna to be creative with pilots. I think we can work together with some pilots, and I'm thinking in as we have so much different public policy objectives, air quality, as I said, biodiversity conservation, the pure community, etc., etc. How can we elaborate pilots that add much more value for the money that it's on those projects, so they can have multiple public policy objectives met. You know, I'm thinking in, as I said, the climate agenda, but also the air quality agenda. We have a lot of problems in Chile with that, and also the biodiversity conservation. So how can we tackle one, two, or three projects that have this multiple benefit, or in the ecosystem language, we need the stacked payment for ecosystem services. You know, how can we stack all these benefits for the same investment? So that's I think that we can offer a pilot with a clear goal, with clear instruments, and with sound MRV and methodologies and tools.
Thank you. And I was told that we still have a couple of minutes before lunch, so we'll take a super quick round, a final round of questions. I'll ask you to be quick. We'll go to Sebastian, the GGGI colleague over there, and then Philippe, do you want to come in again? Good. Sebastian.
Thank you. Just to say that as the question was indirectly asked to us, if you want, we have little time now, but we can discuss afterward. I have a few ideas. One of those being having a look. I keep it short, but because we will not solve the deforestation issue today. Just to say, there are some limits to what Article 6 can do for preserving stock and preserving forest. On the other hand, it's recognized by this agreement because there is also the Article 5, which is dealing with that and which says for preservation of biodiversity, you should look at result-based payment. So just, I keep it short like on this, and happy to come back on the rest. Climate finance can also be an option, and we are giving a lot there. But one question that I would like to ask to China, to Mrs. Feng, I see that the compliance level is almost close to 100%, so it's 99 something. Does it mean that the Chinese company participating to the EU ETS do not need to buy too much credit so far as part of the national ETS? So do I understand correctly that they don't need to exchange too much allowance? And if so, what would be the role of the voluntary credit that they could buy if they are anyway already close to full compliance? Or does it mean that you expect the compliance to decline on the long term because possibly the benchmark will change or the threshold will change? Thanks.
Thank you. Let's go in the back of the room.
Thank you. So this is a question for Jorge and Ana. So what are the criteria to approve the standards for your domestic mechanisms? I heard Jorge saying that the standards were approved in full, including all their methodologies. But just interested to learn more about the process and the requirements for the standards to be eligible. Thank you.
Thanks. And then Philippe, super quickly.
For my part, it's more of a comment for Brazil, Panama, and Chile, and other countries also. It's you're talking a lot about registries, and in Quebec and California, we're using WCI Inc., so Western Climate Initiative Inc. It's a platform that was built by the government, for the government, and led by the government, so everything is built, and you can use, they are developing modules, so it can be for offsets and other things too, so if you are interested to learn more, you can contact me or WCI Inc. Directly. That can be of help for you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to go to Chunling first with a question on compliance in China ETS and the rationale for the use of CCR credits.
Thank you for your question. Mr. Lu, you answer and I answer. You can.
Mr. Lu, then, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, my colleague from EU. You are correct. According to the PPT, for the first cycle, second cycle, more than 90% of the up to 2000 enterprises has fulfilled their obligation. Okay, about less than 1% has failed to compliance. So this is true. But as you know, the PPT says that by end of 2023, the total trading of a carbon emission quota in power sector is about 440 million CO2 terms equivalent. So this is about I think is about 4% of the total emission of China. About, okay, so this is still a very big, very big amount of trading. And so I'm not the legal person. I'm not developed the legislation, dealing mostly in the MRV system. So I know most of the power sector with the capacity up to 300 megawatt. So most of this medium size, big size power plant, they have a very good management, so they can fulfill the obligation, no problem. But some of the small size power plant, they have to buy the credits in the market, so not very much. But the idea in future, if we extend from power sector to other 7 sector, iron, steel, and oil, petroleum, and pulp and paper, metallurgical, aluminum, so on and so forth. So the demand, the market will be extensively enlarged. So that means, which means that we need to offsetting from the CCR system. So which means CCR needs also. But China is very serious, careful for the CCR. You know, currently a few years ago, 10 years ago, we have 20 or 30 methodology, but now we only have 4. So which means China is very serious, takes serious. So it's very difficult in China to develop the CCR project. So 10 years ago, solar, wind can develop project, but now, no. But we have some other mechanism for the solar and wind. We have let's say renewable power electricity can be supported by greener power certification system. So this is another system. So this kind of system should be supporting together in a way to supporting China's the overarching the China pricing system. Okay, thank you.
Many thanks. Oh.
Wait a moment. Just I want to connect it. About ETS, currently the power generation in industrial has been including in management of the national carbon emission trading market, with the emission of about 5.1 billion tons, accounting for more than 40% of the country's total emission. In the future, we will get the pace and intensity of the expanding work reasonable determined the increasing time of different industrials and actively promoting the carbon emissions trading market to cover the key carbon emission industrials gradually. About CCER, next step, we will actively promoting the new projects and the emission to apply for registration, startup, expanding market support, strengthening the data quality management and supervision, sustainable strengthening ability construction, playing to the positive role of the national mechanism to control greenhouse gas emission. Market mechanism is promoting carbon reduction, pollution reduction, green growth, promote economic and social green low carbon and development. That's all. Thank you.
Many thanks. And in 30 seconds before we break for lunch, Jorge and Ana, do you want to elaborate on the question on criteria for the use and the recognition of standards and methodologies?
Yes, sure, very quick. We don't have the requirements yet. Not, I'm just kidding.
Easy,
we don't
thank you.
have it, but we are planning on introducing the requirements next year. We are working step by step. We are a very small team, so we have to do everything. But we are interested in allowing more standards to come in, especially standards in Spanish, because we have found some obstacles in the capacity building phase of the project developers or project owners with the English language. So we do find some positive things about integrating new standards, and we are planning to do so. So next year, maybe I will have a better answer.
So we have a public instrument that lists all the criteria. It must have a registry or have some specific governance that avoids conflict of interest, assures environmental integrity, etc. I can send you all the criteria, but what we did was we gathered or collect some of the criteria from ICROA or ICBCM and Corsia as well. So we have a good set of criteria to be met in order to be part of the standard. And actually, there's one standard that now is applying for being part of the green tax system.
Thank you, Jorge, and thank you, but also Chunling and Ana for the great discussion. Please join me in thanking the panelists. I will not try to attempt to recap such a rich discussion. I just wanted to say, looping back to what we were saying at the beginning of the event, I mean, there's clearly no blueprint for how to do this, right? I mean, we have different experiences and different circumstances and different strategies that countries can choose from. There is no absolute right or wrong way of doing this, but it's quite clear also from the discussion today that we're starting to have quite a lot of practical experiences about how things are done. And we do have good and bad lessons learned related to those experiences. So what is important to keep in mind as we go forward with this process is the importance of having this kind of fora for discussion and to compare notes on how things are going and on the experiences that countries are making with the implementation of domestic crediting frameworks and carbon pricing more broadly. So thank you again to the World Bank for convening this discussion, and back to Fernando for lunch instructions. Thank you.